Yes, that sound can mean only one thing. We are back for another edition of the official Handball Blitz podcast, brought to you by Lily's Little Lunchbox. My name is Nick Davis, three-time Lismore Diocese champion and inventor of the reverse backhand. I'm joined, as always, by Lachie the Sandman Sands, putting his opponents to sleep. How are you, sir?
Yeah, I'm doing pretty well. I actually met up with my foe, Vikram Danapathy, just the other week.
Ooh.
And I gave him a bit of a power move. So,
What'd you do to him?
well, I said, it's good to see you, but it actually wasn't good to see him.
Bang!
So, got him.
See, it's all about mind games sometimes.
Yeah.
The battle is done off the court.
Yeah. And he beat me all those years ago, and I'm not letting it affect me.
No, clearly you haven't forgotten about
No.
it either. Joined also by a man who was nearly ripped to shreds on the streets this morning, Mitch Lewis. Welcome back. You survived. You got out of, a war zone, it looked like.
Perfect words there, Nick. It felt a little bit like I was a war correspondent and throwing myself into danger and feeling like I had prepared and quickly found out I wasn't. So lucky to get out of there and be back here talking to you, gentlemen.
Well, of course, before we actually unpack all the action that happened down at BBC this morning, we're very lucky, and this doesn't come up very often. We're currently joined in the studio by, an elite athlete, someone who has been there on the big stage to take some of our younger listeners into the mindset of what it takes to be a champion. And look, we had to go through a lot of management, a lot of deals.
Yep.
I'll be paying for this for a while, probably going to let a lot of social credits away. But we're joined by, Susie O'Neill. Hello.
Oh, hello. It's do I put my podcast voice on? Hello. It's nice to be here. I'm actually just doing my intro in the office in the studio.
Sure.
And so I'll pipe in if I have anything to say.
No, that's okay. Okay,
Otherwise, I'll go back to deleting 5 trillion spam emails.
Well, as I said, we're very lucky just to even have some of your time.
Yeah.
So while she's got some emails to go through, we'll get to Suze a little bit later. The connection's just dropping out at the moment.
Bye-bye.
Mitch, you again on the street at BBC this morning, Brisbane Boys College, one of the GPS schools here in Brisbane, and undoubtedly they run an elite handball program.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, you go over there, over 120 years of history, just sort of coming out of that school, and they were really, very early on talking about their handball credentials, and said they've actually got a system out there in place, such as the demand to play handball. They've increased the courts. It's probably the most eco-friendly handball setup I've seen at any location I've visited. Between every handball court, there's a tree. So I think for every champion that's come out of the school, they plant a tree in there. So bring it back down to earth. They don't forget where they come from.
It's great also, oxygen is going to be used a lot when playing handball. It's a high octane sport, and you need some of that carbon dioxide photosynthesis is the term I'm looking for to happen, so that you can be breathing the freshest of air.
Yep, no, that's it. And they said that they're having to actually bring in a booking system at the school because
that was incredible.
the numbers out there, we're talking 1,500 students out there, and they've got enough facilities, but it's still not reaching the demand for handball out there. And so it's really, I'm not going to say it's a class war yet, but at the same time, we're talking legitimate, actual classes, grade 4 to grade 5, getting in, booking it out, and
a different type of class war.
Well, and it's an AM to PM sort of thing. Like the grade 5s, more of a PM sort of training, sort of camp regime going on. The younger kids, obviously, all that energy builds up. They're more for that 10:30 sort of time slot. And they said even part of the application process, the enrollment process, they're actually asking students about their handball credentials. So it's not just a fun game they want to get involved with once a year. They want to make this part of the school's DNA.
I love that. We do have some of your chat with some of the beautiful staff and students at BBC right here.
Well, I'm going to say the superstars of the game out here at Brisbane Boys. Now, Edwin, grade 5, mate, good morning.
Hello.
Hello, mate. Now, you're a confident handball player. You reckon you've got what it takes to be the champ?
Definitely.
Definitely right. So grade 5 seem to be the best handball players. Get a lot of nods, yes. Everyone agrees that grade 5's the best, yeah?
Controversial messages there.
Conveniently in front
Bit
of all
hostile
the
there,
grade
Mitchell.
fives here.
You're losing them,
Okay.
mate.
Well. Who are we going to watch out for? Are the grade 6s? The older
Grade
kids give you a lot of
6s.
drama, or is it those new up-and-comers, those kids that haven't really earned it yet? Who's the danger grade, Edwin?
Probably grade 4.
Classic grade 4. The
Well, there you
troublemakers.
go.
Am I right? Yeah. That's exactly right. Yeah. Yeah, I mean, and what that audio, just this, you would have had to have cut it out because it would have been radio silence. That school, you could have heard a pin drop. And we're outside, we're in the environment, and that the teachers, the faculty there really have them down. not unlike, again, to go back to what we were talking about at the top, like an army training camp almost. These kids are disciplined. And then handball's brought into it, and they switch on differently. And now we were just looking through some of the elite talent that have come out across different sporting fields, but that have come out of this school. Dan Gagai really stood out for me. Obviously, currently for the Newcastle Knights, former South Sydney Rabbitoh, Brisbane Bronco, and Maroon superstar. And one of the things that gets thrown Dan Gagai's way is he can be playing whatever his form might be at club level, once he puts on the state representative jersey, he switches to a different player. And that's what these kids really struck me as. They know who they are when they're there to learn, when it's all part of the actual academia of the school. But as soon as it becomes handball, they switch not into animals, but it becomes a real primal sort of want and desire and need for greatness in handball. So, I mean, we haven't visited them for Handball Blitz in the past. These guys, they might become my absolute side to watch, the danger team going into 2024's grand final.
Yeah, there's just raw power coming out of that environment there. But it's funny, we're looking through different lenses. We've seen state schools, we've seen private schools, probably even seen Steiner schools. A lot of different ways that handball is conducted there. Now, of course, as we know, handball part of the GPS program. All schools play for that every year. It's actually bigger than rugby union. They do their war cries beforehand. They would be practicing that before as well. So, I mean, let's say one of these schools does make it through to the final. We are really going to see a big turnout from their student section. But, Mitch, I was very interested. I want to know how this went down on the courts. Of course, being a private school, they all have their uniforms on, and I saw blazers, I saw ties, I saw boater hats, and I know of those hats that they have to stay on. I'm trying to work out, from your eyes, was that an advantage to be able to play essentially in any uniform, or you've preferred to maybe see them, because they will come final, be in their sports uniform?
I'm glad you saw that from the studio here, because the teachers down there, the faculty, very, very adamant that the uniform stayed on. Hats were a must as well, which I haven't seen before. I know that has messed with the balance, the vision of schools that we've previously visited, but I think that's about being able to play under any conditions. Obviously, once they get out there for the semi-finals, the grand finals, they're a little bit more uniform with the rest of their competitors, and the grand final as well, they won't be wearing their big hats, their Akubas or anything like that, their blazers. So I think it's all about training in those conditions. You know, we want them to train in absolute heat. We want them to train in the cold. Today it was raining as well. These guys are training with limited movement because of the extra clothing they're wearing, but that I think just free them up to be a little bit more flexible come business time.
Love that.
Well, I like to think that training those hats on allows them to keep perfect balance. We once saw a certain athlete swim the length of a pool with a glass of water on top of her head, and maybe that just shorter after competition. She's in the studio with us. Her name is Susie O'Neill, and she knew how to turn it on when competition hit. Suze, I know we can't take too much of your time here. You've got a very busy intro to go through, but what's a piece of advice for someone when they step onto the court, semi-final or final time? What's the mindset that you went into? Was it a mantra, or do you block things out? Just take us inside the mind of a champion.
Firstly, if I can correct you on one little thing. Just a small thing. I actually balanced 0 alcohol beer on my forehead.
Well, again,
See,
0.
You knew I would be.
That's
that would hurt me to say that.
I don't know. I don't know if the kids are allowed to drink the 0 alcohol beer, but also
that's why
I don't see
it.
why they can't. No,
That's
no,
okay.
no.
That's okay.
Not at all. Not at
That's
all.
why now I see what you're doing.
I say play on.
I bet you knew. And you
No, I
just
actually didn't know.
Okay. The mindset. Yeah, I think for me, serious answer.
Yeah.
Yep. Just
The serious podcast.
I think for me it was saying the same. First of all, it was routine. What's the routine I did before every single game? So if I was them, I would take. If I made the final at Suncorp, I would do the same routine that I did at Little Lunch. Still called Little Lunch.
Yeah.
At school.
Yep.
Like whatever you do to get sort of psyched for your game. And then I also had just a couple of things I said over and over in my head. For me, it was long and strong. But for handball, I reckon it would be watch the ball. No, I'd be eye on the ball.
Eye on the ball. Like that.
I like that
Eye
a
on
lot.
the ball, because that's all you got to do in ball sports. I've heard. I'm not very good at them, but I used to play a bit of tennis, and my dad used to teach me, which is never get a parent to teach you things.
No.
By the way, just a side note. But he always say, look at the ball until it hits the racket. So I think watch the ball.
Well, they've got their hand rackets out there, and the kids, if you're listening, don't take that advice. Exactly what Susie said. Don't listen to your parents.
Can I say, Nick, we're in outside of handball in the respective football seasons. We're nearing finals, and we look at teams that are on a hot streak coming into the finals. We speak a lot about whether a team needs a loss? I mean, no team will say that they need a loss, but do they, from an outside point of view, do they require one just to sort of break it up, bring them back down to reality? I know, Suze, obviously, like our handball contestants, the majority of your swimming as an individual, but as a competitor, do you think before they get to semi-final day on their way to a grand final berth, because it is do or die once we get to the semi-final day next week, do they need to be dominating at the school level, win, and go in absolutely cocky, or do we think that is a loss? It's not going to be the end of them if they do lose on their way to semi-final day next week, if they've already won their spot in the finals.
I think either way is fine. There's another mantra that I used when I was training.
Yeah.
Because once you get to number one, which some of the people, well, one of them.
Yeah, one will.
Previously.
Definitely.
So this only applies to one person here, but the hardest thing was to, when you are number one, remember to train like you're number two.
Ooh, I love
So
that.
one
wow.
good
Yes.
thing, if you did lose, then that would inspire you to train harder.
Yeah, the
I
air,
think.
the air's always thinnest at the mountaintop.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
And that's why they have those trees to help.
Of course, absolutely, to
generate that
reoxygenate
oxygen.
the environment.
Yeah.
Well, Susie O'Neill, thank you so much for
Oh,
joining
Oh,
us.
that.
so just one more question before we go.
Susie's got one more minute before she's back to the invoices.
Mitch was just talking before about some of the old boys of Brisbane Boys College. Kieran Perkins, I believe, also
Yes.
went to Brisbane Boys College. Now, you'd having swum alongside him, you'd be able to speak to, I guess, his academic, his athletic ability as well, and just him as a whole person. Any advice for some of these up-and-coming athletes wanting to be like yourself or like Kieran?
Well, I've got just to give you my background of Kieran. So we
Yeah.
finished exactly the same year, 1990.
Wow.
And he was at BBC. Then we actually did exactly the same university degree.
Incredible.
We were in one subject together. Actually, he did arts, I did science. Science was a bit harder to get into.
I was the science.
I was a little bit
Age-old
smarter
debate.
than Kieran, let's say. But what was the question? All I want to say is that I'm smarter than Kieran.
That's it.
Yeah,
Print it.
That's good. That's good. Thanks for your time, Susie.
Okay.
You get back to your emails. But Brisbane Boys College, BBC, they're all about developing, I guess, their students holistically. I know that they're big on honour, aspiration, wisdom, achievement, and community. And it's great to see some of these entrants. Edwin Masuda, who I believe you spoke with this morning.
He was the man, yes.
But Oliver Rung, Matt Orr, and Alex Chen also seem to be having those characteristics as well.
Yeah, and I think with Edwin too, a short-statured competitor, and I think that'll throw off his opponents like it did me. I went up there to speak to him, which year level he's coming into this competition from. I was not prepared that he was a year fiver.
Okay.
I figured again, short king, and I think that's where the danger comes from. Is that you're looking at him from the outside package, you think you know what to expect, and someone like Edwin, we heard his confidence in how little he spoke before.
Yeah.
He doesn't need to talk. He just needs to get out there and walk it, and I think that he will. He's going to be an absolute danger man, and I think he's going to be a quiet fire on his way to the finals.
Yeah, I mean, we've got plenty of other GPS schools involved in our Handball Blitz competition. You don't have to go to a GPS school to get involved. You can be a state school, a Steiner school, as you said before,
Absolutely.
Nick. All you have to do is register on the Nova Player app right now or online at Nova FM. Just jump on there, register your school. We've still got three school visits
Still
to
a few
do.
to come.
And then we will be finding our North Side and our South Side semi-finalists ahead of the big grand final, halftime Broncos Eels.
Locked in.
Locked in.
And I think that's really good of the Broncos and Eels to put on a pre-game and a
Yes.
post-game
Yeah.
show.
Huge.
They play 40 minutes of rugby league either side. Like, you've got to keep the crowd building. So,
Yeah.
But there's only one place the eyeballs will be. And I can very safely say now that I will, unless my footy team loses by 150 points this Friday night, be there. Because
Wow.
I was 50-50. I was 50-50. But I will be there on the night of Handball Blitz, back in my GA chair. Mitch will be down there as MC, I imagine. And
Absolutely.
we've got a big night.
A massive night and a massive couple of weeks of handball. So if you're one of these aspiring
Not
athletes,
too late.
get on board Nova FM or online Nova Player app as well. Register your school, register yourself, and might be seeing you later on this week. That's it for the Handball Blitz
That's it.
podcast.
Let's blitz, baby. Let's blitz.